Hello, I'm back again. This is day 4, and on day 4 we're going to do a deep dive of Lbry, or library, as they like to be called. So I've got my very typical publish workflow you can see behind me. If you've watched any of the other videos, you'll be very familiar with this. I'm certainly familiar with this, as this is probably the 4th time I've drawn this kind of diagram. So let's start, as we always do, on the left-hand side, where we have how does an artist or a content creator get their content basically known about, and how do we start the publish process? Okay, so based on the library documentation, what I've found so far is that they have published an app called the Library app, and the expectation currently is that as a content creator, content producer, you are going to use that app, and that will be the sort of first portal that will get your content into this decentralized network. Okay, so they have stated that the Library app is open source, and that there's no particular reason why you couldn't create your own if you were so inclined. So you, as a content creator, you would use the Library app. You would start by asking for or bidding for a URL, a Unified Resource Locator, very similar to what you would expect if you were trying to get to a website, right? HTTP:// and then whatever it is. In this case, they have their own, what they're calling their own protocol for a library, and it would be something like LBRY:// and then some string of characters that is important to you as a creator. Now, what they're describing is some sort of bidding process where other people might want that URL, and you as a content creator would have to offer the most library credits, I think, in order to secure that name. Now, they did also talk about an ordering. If you lose the bid, if you don't get the highest bid, you can still use the name, but you get a number attached to the name that sort of drops your priority, I think probably in searching. So that's kind of an interesting aspect of it too, but that's part of your branding, right, is getting a good name that's associated with your content. So the next part is, so once you've got your URL that you're going to advertise to the outside world, and you've bid on it, you need to get your actual content associated with it and uploaded. So first we'll talk about the association part. I believe what is going to happen is when you're running the Library app locally, you're going on your own laptop or your own desktop, whatever, you're going to have to introduce that app to the media file, whether it's a movie or a song or any kind of intellectual property, like a script, maybe a PDF document. You're going to have to introduce that content to the Library app, and it's going to probably sign through some cryptographic hash method. It's going to have to sign that content and bind it to this library address, or this URL. And what they've described in their documentation suggests that once that's done, it will be published to the Library blockchain. Okay, so this is a decentralized blockchain. So once it's there, it's basically permanent. So it can't be removed from the blockchain by Lbry, the company. That blockchain is maintained by the network of Lbry blockchain miners. Okay, so as long as the miners exist, that blockchain is considered permanent, and your association between your content and this name and some signature that binds the two is going to be present there. Okay, so and I should point out that in the transcoding side, it doesn't appear there's anything going on there. I can't find anything in their documentation, so it looks like there's no transcoding. So I think the expectation is that your finished content comes in this side, and this is not expected to be an editing system at all. So back to the hosting side, right? So I discussed the blockchain and how that relates to the URL. Then there is the aspect of how does your file make its way, I guess, closer to the customer, right, on the playback side. there's then a process where your file is, I believe no, that's right. From the documentation, it starts out that your file is not automatically disseminated through the peer-to-peer network of library apps that are running on other people's computers. That doesn't happen yet. What happens is someone has to request your media, and through a process, through a gradual process of audience members asking for it, it will be copied and delivered throughout the network of peer-to-peer library app runners who are getting incentivized for doing this by getting library credits that are being paid for on the playback side by the customer. And I would suspect there might be an aspect of this too, which is that you might be able to incentivize getting the content out earlier if you wanted to spend library, but they haven't talked about that, so that's my own speculation. But they definitely talked about this thing where you have to seed the network by your playback requests. Okay, so they mentioned that as a creator, you may have to run this library app for a while in order to get multiple copies out into this peer-to-peer network. Okay, so let's move on to, and I should point out this is the same library app, I believe in all cases. It's the same thing that I'm referring to. There isn't like different installations. I think it's the same binary that's running. Okay, so let's move on to the delivery side. It appears that it is still through library app, and this is obviously connected to if you are a user and you want to play back, just because the file might exist on the network doesn't necessarily mean you can get access to it. So you're asking through some mechanism, and I actually didn't find out what that mechanism was, but you're asking for a piece of content, and the network of peer-to-peer agents are responding to you to deliver that content to you so you can watch it. So in the delivery side, again, they have their library app presence, and I wrote this little diagram here of like a little cylinder, and that's my representation of disk, of like a hard drive or whatnot that's running with the library app. So your content is getting copied to hard drives throughout this peer-to-peer network. Okay, so then let's finish with the playback side and what that looks like. Just today, Lbry announced at spe.ch or spa.ch a web portal, an HTML5 and JavaScript web portal that allows you access, without using the library app, it allows you access to the network of P2P library app runners. So what that means is you can search that's allowing you to search the blockchain for content, and then once you've found something that you like or matches your search term, you can then request it through the app again, and it will you will request the content through this decentralized peer-to-peer network, and these agents, whichever one gets it, will deliver it back to you. Now, this is supposed to be a little pirate guy symbol here, if you can tell. So what they've said in their documentation is that if if there's a copyright violation and they find out about it, Lbry that is, which it looks like Lbry is an independent company with a legal team. And what they've said is that if they find out that copyright infringement or probably any other kind of banned or questionable content that they deem questionable, they will not allow access to it from their library app. Okay, so they will effectively censor some requests from, and I would imagine it's probably going to apply to the website as well and the library app, which you can use both as an audience member, as a customer trying to view content. You can use either of these mechanisms, but it looks like they're going to use discretion and do some curating or limiting. Now they've also said that there's nothing particularly special about these apps. They're open source. You can write them yourself. You just need to know enough about the architecture in the blockchain and enough about the protocol that's serving these files. So it looks like you could get around that and break copyright laws or avoid censorship. So assuming that you are making a legitimate request for content that's not violating copyrights, you would be allowed, through either of these mechanisms, you would be allowed to request the content that you want. I should back up. Way back at this step, you're allowed to specify as a content creator whether this is free content or whether it has some sort of a contract for payment. And that matters at this end because if there's contract for payment, where they want to go with this is that I think you'd have to use a library credit to pay for access to it. That would go back to the content creator, and some transaction fees would be paid out, I believe, to the library app runners who are hosting and or delivering the content. Okay. One more thing, DRM. So I did find a little bit of information on this. They're not expecting to add DRM to any of the files that are being ingested to their network. So they acknowledged that there could be sort of maybe a key exchange layered on top of this. So what that would mean, I think, is that if you wanted to DRM protect your content, whatever it might be, if it's a PDF or a movie, it would need to be in a DRM protected format on the way in at the very beginning, and that you may have to orchestrate some sort of key exchange after they've paid in order for the customer to be able to finally view the content. That's not one of their first goals. They're still kind of in a beta phase, and that's not one of their first goals. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over time. That's the end of the deep dive for today, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.